When the waves crash upon the rocks, it appears that the rocks are winning. When organized water explodes and disintegrates and scatters in retreat, the rock remains proud and haughty. It does not notice that it has changed ever so slightly. Stranded puddles gather in the hollows of the solid enemy, seeping in the secret crevice, or slipping slowly, silently seaward with the smallest speck of sand. Persistence versus resistance. Life is movement. Death is hard and still. The whiff of freedom cannot be crushed by the metal tread of a tank. Love cannot be pummeled by the gavel. Kindness is not weakness. A gentle shower nurtures the seed, and a blade of grass splits the pavement. Sunlight gently fades the flags of war, bleaching them white with surrender. Invisible wind will cause a stone face to crumble, making room for a smile and a reason to hope. It's easy to be a pessimist. A newspaper will tell you that there are many things wrong with the world. Wars, famine, disease, political infighting, environmental degradation, racism, sexism, bigotry of every kind. The economy is declining while academia debates over what actually constitutes a recession. Even the weather is not a safe topic. Somewhere there is a natural disaster destroying the lives of someone you don't even know. After a while, it gets hard to muster compassion for the endless parade of victims that flash across the TV news. Harder still to write Congress and advocate for change when you know they are out to lunch with some lobbyist who pays their bills. And then there are people. Have you ever noticed how imperfect they are? And how everybody dies, every single one. Life can be bleak. It's easy to criticize. It's easy to be down, to believe that life is pointless, that all our effort is for naught. Is there reason to hope? What good is wishing and hoping? Sometimes it can seem like the most silly thing to do. One of my favorite movies is The Life of Brian. And in the final scene, the character is being crucified, the title character. And he sings, "Always look on the bright side of life." Think of the times in your own lives when you had your greatest sorrow and your deepest doubt. And people come to you with words of encouragement and they ring hollow. The platitudes just seem like blunt, dull objects. Canadian author Carol Shields died this week after a 5-year bout with cancer. And she said that she grew tired of people coming up to her during her struggle and telling her to count her blessings, as if cataloging the good times in her life could ever compensate for losing everything. Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi concentration camp and observed that those who had hope or meaning in their lives were better off than those who sank into despair. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but that last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way." I think there's two kinds of hope: wishful thinking and meaningful striving. Now, wishful thinking arises out of a lack or a need. I wish someone beautiful would fall in love with me. I hope my number comes up in the lottery. I hope this test is easy because I didn't study. I'm late. I hope the traffic is clear. I hope they don't cash the check until I have money in my account. Sometimes wishful thinking is magical thinking. I wish all weapons would disappear overnight. I wish I could live on a tropical island where it's sunny all day and only rains at night and there's no hurricanes. I wish I could eat all the Krispy Kremes I want and have a stomach like Brad Pitt. This is the type of hope that Ben Franklin was referring to when he said, "He that lives on hope will die fasting." Wishful thinking is spiritual donuts, temporarily satisfying, but ultimately insubstantial. Meaningful striving is a different kind of hope. It inspires action. Thoreau wrote, "If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put foundations under them." Viktor Frankl saw that the people who reached out to others in the midst of Auschwitz acted as if they had a future. It made the present more bearable. He was fortunate to survive and made it his purpose to tell that story. But in the context, what utter foolishness was it to wonder, what am I going to do after the war? While you see your companions killed daily. But hope transcends reason, but it can't stop there to be worthy of the name hope. In 1970, the UU affirmed the rights of homosexuals. It was a small voice, barely heard at the time. It was a small wave that barely made it to shore, let alone crash on the rocks. And one of the frustrating things for me when I go to GA is that we have these grand statements of conscience that we vote on and celebrate a democratic process as a denomination that is 0.1% of the population of this country. And sometimes you think you're just throwing wisps into the wind. Yet 33 years later from that first resolution, and there were many that followed, the Supreme Court voted 6-3 to overturn sodomy laws. Hope won because it gave us a world to strive for. Ideas have a way of surviving. They killed Jesus. They killed Unitarian Michael Servetus. They burned witches. Gandhi was assassinated. Martin Luther King was shot down. But the hope that they carried in their lives outlived them. When Gandhi said, "You must be the change you want to see in the world," he revealed the true meaning of hope. If we want peace and believe peace, we will act peacefully. If we hope that the world will be reasonable, we must be rational while others are irrational. If we hope and want love, we will act lovingly. Our lives consist of a series of small acts. We must be aware of the consequences. The impact of our actions may be beyond our knowledge. The ripple effect of a small stone thrown into a pond cannot be predicted. A small act of kindness may transform someone's life. We cannot control the outcome, but we can control our input and our attitude and the way that we approach life. Are our actions based on despair or on hope? Goethe wrote, "In all things, it is better to hope than it is to despair." I believe despair is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you value being right more than you value happiness, choose despair. If you look for faults in your boss, your coworkers, your customers, your partner, your children, and your parents, you are guaranteed to find them. And it was easy to blame them as obstacles to your satisfaction. They will fail you, as will larger society. It does not care about you. Look at all that is wrong in the world. It is not your fault. You did not make the world. You are not to blame. Blame the world. Wallow in your powerlessness, lobbing satire and derision at everyone. Look for what's wrong and despair. Know that everyone and everything is wrong and that you are the only one that's right. Thomas Merton describes this when he writes, "Despair is the absolute extreme of self-love. It is reached when a man deliberately turns his back on all help from anyone else in order to taste the rotten luxury of knowing himself to be lost." Despair frees you from responsibility, and some take refuge in that. Despair is selfish. Hope takes us beyond ourselves. Psychiatrist Carl Menninger wrote, "Hope is a necessity for normal life, as a major weapon against the suicide impulse. Hope is not identical with optimism. Optimism is distant from reality. Like pessimism, it emphasizes the importance of I. Hope is modest, humble, and selfless. It implies progress. It is an adventure, a going forward, a confident search for a rewarding life." That echoes the words of Thoreau a century earlier, who said, "What a man thinks of himself, that is what determines, or rather indicates, his life." Anne Frank, a young girl who died in a Nazi death camp, felt compelled to write. And in her writing, she displays hope in opposition to all evidence. This hope sustained her as she wrote, "In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart." Had she despaired, she may not have written a word. We would have lost a part of human history. And her words reach out to many good-hearted people and inspire them to work for human rights. True hope inspires action. Emily Dickinson wrote, "Hope is a strange invention, a patent of the heart, in unremitting action, yet never wearing out." Hope is the first action towards more action. It is action that is based on its own integrity, not upon the immediate result. If it is right to be kind even in the face of anger. To return anger for anger is to lose hope for a kinder world. If it is right to speak the truth, speak the truth. To remain silent in the face of lies is to lose hope that the truth is worth pursuing. If it is right to share, share even in the midst of poverty. To hoard is to lose hope of future income. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said that you should love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you salute only your brethren, what more are you doing than others?" This statement is universalism in action. If you believe that something is good or positive, act that way. It's easy to love the lovable. Hope allows us to love the unlovable. Both the good and evil need rain. Both the good and evil need sun. Hope means taking action to be the best person you can be. Percy Shelley wrote of hope overcoming adversity. To suffer woe which hope thinks infinite, to forgive wrongs darker than death or night, to defy power which seems omnipotent, to love and to bear, to hope till hope creates from its own wreck the thing it contemplates. Hope will lead to some disappointments in life, to suffer woes of things that hope thinks infinite. But somehow, hope itself is able to pull you out of those things, to love and to bear. Those of us who have loved anyone, be it a partner, a parent, a child, a friend, know that sometimes love carries with it terrible pain, terrible burden, terrible worry. To love and to bear, to hope till hope creates from its own wreck, from its own disappointments, the things it contemplates. Think about hope as an act of resistance. It's not starry-eyed dreaming. It's bearing the pain on the way to something greater. It is the purpose that makes the pain bearable. Unitarian Universalism is not an easy religion. It hopes for religious tolerance in a world that prefers to condemn perceived heretics. It lobbies for hopes for free speech in a world that prefers unanimous agreement. It hopes for sexual freedom in a world that wants to dictate to us what we can do with our own bodies. It hopes for reason in a world swept away by superstition. It hopes for all people instead of dividing the world into winners and losers. We have no doctrine that promises an omnipotent being will make everything all right. We are left to hope and do the work ourselves. Whatever holy power may exist, it only becomes real when we act. We act with no assurance that justice will prevail. Susan B. Anthony was a prime example of this. She died without winning the vote for women. And in her last public speech, she said, "Failure is impossible." Her hope was not realized in her lifetime, but it gave her lifetime purpose. Take your hopes for this crazy world and act upon them. It may seem unbalanced to others, but trust yourself. Your dreams may be far away, but as you take steps towards them, they become real. If only for the sake of giving purpose to our lives. Hope is its own reward. If we give up hope, things will not change. So hope and act for the good, even when it seems you are losing. When the waves crash upon the rocks, it appears that the rocks are winning. May we swell with hope and throw ourselves against injustice, doing our part to make it crumble to the sea. May we bless and be blessed.